وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا ابن رسول الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. عطروا أفواهكم بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. الثاني على حب الحسن والحسين. الثالث على حب الزهراء بأعلى أصواتكم. In the past few years, we saw a new phenomena that didn't exist in the past. Previously, only the privileged would be able to go out into outer space. You would have to be an astronaut. You would have to be someone that works for NASA, for example, in order to go into space. Recently, this idea of going into space has been commercialized. Anyone who is willing to pay, and pay handsomely, they're allowed to go. You can go for a day, 2 days, 3 days. I don't know exactly what the program is, but you're allowed to go. If you're not an astronaut, you're a regular citizen, you can go into outer space, outside of Earth's orbit, spin, take a look at the Earth from its orbit, and then come back. And this has been organized by Elon Musk and SpaceX, and there's thousands of people that are willing to pay over $100,000, $200,000 to go on this expedition, to have this experience of going into space. Now, obviously, this is something very appealing and very exciting for a lot of youth to go into outer space, to be able to see the Earth from up there. Imagine the view. It must be a very beautiful view. This is something very exciting and not ordinary. You know, traveling to Europe, traveling to Asia, traveling to Africa, it could be exciting, but this is something ordinary. anyone can do, but not everyone could go into outer space. Obviously, it's very costly and it has its risks as well. So far, there hasn't been any accidents. But can this be guaranteed that there will not be accidents? Lives will not be lost? Obviously, there's always a risk. Tonight, my dear brothers and sisters, we'd like to discuss the three following points. Number one, what does Islam say about space travel? Does Islam address this topic from far, from near? Does it address the topic of space travel or trying to discover space? This is one. Number two, what is the fiqh discussion on this topic? Is it halal to go into outer space or is it haram? Also, how would we pray? How would we fast? What would be our qibla? What about issues pertaining to wudu and ghusl or tayammum into outer space? Is this all possible or not? Can we have mosques into outer space? And what would be the hukum and the laws pertaining to those mosques in outer space? Now, while this discussion might seem to some people irrelevant, but give it a couple of years, it will become very, very relevant. Because we're getting there. We're almost going to land on Mars. And we're discovering new planets. And we're able to reach these planets. And we might even discover that there's life on these planets. So this discussion will become very relevant in just a couple of years. Thirdly, is this something that we should be going after? Traveling into space. Our youth that are intrigued by the idea of going into space. Is this something worth it? Is this something that I, as a Muslim youth in the West, is it something that I should invest in? Should I think of such a project? Or this is a waste of time for me and for Muslim youth in the West, for example. These are the points that we'd like to cover tonight, inshallah. Wa sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Islam did not discuss explicitly the topic of space travel, obviously, not in the Quran and not in the Ahadith. However, we can assess, we can assume from the verses that we have and from the traditions and Ahadith that we have, we can assess and assume what would be the position of the Quran, what would be the position of Islam. First of all, the Quran encourages us to travel, to see the world, to leave your area of comfort, your comfort zone. Travel, see the world, go to different continents, go to different countries, go and see ancient ruins, go and see where previous tribes and nations lived, how they lived, and what they left behind. Allah Azza wa Jalla in the Quran says, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانظُرُوا كَيْفَ بَدَأَ الْخَلْقَ ثُمَّ اللَّهُ يُنْشِئُ النَّشْأَةَ الْآخِرَةَ. In another verse, Allah says, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. Go and see. See the peoples before you, the nations before you. What happened to them? Some of them were mightier than you. They were more powerful than you. But where are they now? Go and see their ruins. Go and see their homes. And another verse, قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَانظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. Go in God's vast lands. Go and travel. Go and discover what happened as a consequence to the actions of criminals, those who transgressed against Allah and were corrupt on earth. Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to travel, wants us to discover, wants us to learn. Go and travel the earth. You know, there's people in the United States of America that don't own a passport. Imagine one of the most powerful passports on earth. People are willing to give millions of dollars to own a U.S. passport. There are people in the U.S., in Canada, which is also a very powerful passport. They don't own that passport. They haven't left Toronto or Mississauga or Ontario. They haven't traveled. While Islam encourages us to travel. Leave your city, leave your state, leave your country. Go and see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Allah has created some of the most beautiful areas, most beautiful places. Go and see. Go travel. See what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable of. How Allah is powerful. The beautiful things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Allah created them for us to see. Not see them on Instagram and on TikTok. No, but to see them physically. To go and travel, go see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Go and see the ruins, the ancient ruins of previous nations and peoples. They all went, but they left their homes. How many of you have been to the Petra in Jordan? I have, several years ago. Enormous, beautiful, magnificent. You go in the middle of an alley in between mountains, all of a sudden you're mesmerized by homes in the middle of mountains, carved in the middle of mountains. It took a genius, architects. Imagine, we're talking about thousands of years ago. They didn't have the technology that we have today. Thousands of years ago, they engraved these beautiful homes, sites, places of worship in the middle of the desert and in these mountains. But where are they now? None of them exist. Go and see ancient ruins in Turkey, everywhere. In Italy, in Rome, in Greece. Where are they now? They're all gone. And we too, we shall go as well. If previous nations who were more powerful than us, they left, you and I will remain? None of us will remain. We will all leave. We too, a day will come in which we'll all leave. And we will abandon everything that we left behind. One day, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he came back to Najaf, to Kufa. وَقَفَ بِظَهْرِ الْكُوفَةِ, which is modern day Najaf, Wadi Salam. Amir al-Mu'mineen with his companions, he stood at the cemetery of Wadi Salam and he began to recite. And he wanted his companions to listen. Assalamu alaykum ya ahl al-ghurba. Assalamu alaykum ya ahl al-turba. Assalamu alaykum ya ahl al-wahsha. He's speaking to the people of the graves in the cemetery. Assalamu alaykum. And then he says, wa amma ad-dur. If you're wondering what happened to your homes, O you who are dead, these beautiful mansions and palaces that you worked so hard to earn and to buy, amma ad-dur faqad sukinat. Your homes, do you think they're vacant? There's non-vacancy. Have you seen on the roads when you stop at a hotel, sometimes it's vacant, sometimes there's no vacancy. When he says there's no vacancy, your homes, there's others living in them. Your bedroom, your favorite bedroom, where you would spend hours, there's someone else living in that room, in your bedroom, in your spot. أما الدور فقد سكنت وأما الأموال فقد وزعت. Your wealth, your bank account that you spent so much work to build a huge bank account, your money's gone. It's already shared between the heirs. وَأَمَّا الْأَزْوَاجِ فَقَدْ نُكِحَتْ. Your loving wife who loved you, after your death, she got married. Your loving husband who used to love you, as soon as your 40th left, he went and got married. I have a friend. 2 months ago, his wife passed away. A week ago, I saw him. I told him, how are you doing? He said, Alhamdulillah, I was in Mashhad. What a beautiful ziyarah. He said, I asked Imam Rida to find me a new wife. I told him, your wife died 2 months ago. He said, yes, Sayyid, well, I need a wife. This is the reality. This is the وَأَمَّا الْأَزْوَاجِ فَقَدْ نُكِحَتْ. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen says, هَذَا خَبَرُ مَا عِنْدَنَا فَمَا خَبَرُ مَا عِنْدَكُمْ. If you're asking about dunya, this is the A summary of dunya. This is what's happening here. Tell us what is happening over there. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen looks at his companions and he says, Amma law udhina lahum bil kalam. They can't speak. But if they were able to speak to us, Amma law udhina lahum bil kalam, la akhbaruna inna khayra az-zad at-taqwa. They would have given us one sentence. Inna khayra az-zad at-taqwa. Nothing will benefit you in this life other than piety and taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, go and see the ancient ruins. Go and see those homes that people before you left behind and they went to the next life. Go and see. Let this be a lesson. Learn. Take a moral lesson for yourself that you will not stay here forever. You will not stay here forever. This dunya is not worth it. The dunya that we fight over, we struggle over, we're willing to cause fights, destroy families, lie, cheat, just over dunya. We're about to leave this dunya. We'll leave this dunya behind. In one city here in North America, in the United States of America, in one city, there were two gas station owners, both Muslim, both from an Arabic country, two gas station owners. And there was competition between them. One would reduce 2 cents, the other would reduce 2 cents. They would keep on reducing prices out of competition. One day, one of the gas station owners hired someone to go and kill the other gas station owner. For what? For reducing the price of gas 2 cents. 2 cents. He went and he killed him. One ended up dead, the other one ended up in jail. They both went. Over 2 cents. This is dunya. This is what we do. We fight over dunya and then we have to leave. Allah says, go and see. Go and see. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The Quran also tells us to think and ponder over what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. The skies, the earth. Ponder, think. الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا. Those who remember Allah standing and sitting. قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And those who constantly think, يَتَفَكَّر, not يُفَكِّر, يَتَفَكَّر, means constantly they think over what? يَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Those who constantly think over the creation of the skies. Oh Allah, what have you created? خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Those who think over the creation of the skies, who is able to create such skies? Such a beautiful sky. Just lift your head and see at night. Unfortunately, in these cities, we can because of the lights. But if we were to raise our heads and see the beautiful skies, the beautiful planets, the beautiful stars, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. This earth, these guys. Now, this came all by coincidence. They tell you it was a coincidence. The Big Bang happened, and all of a sudden, all of this came into coincidence. Planet Earth, Mars, all of the other planets, these stars, they all came in by coincidence. You're telling me this beautiful earth, this beautiful sky, these planets, these waterfalls, these mountains, these rivers, these oceans, it was all a coincidence? It just happened by coincidence? طيب. How about if I tell you I was in the middle of the desert, driving in the middle of the desert, my car stops, and all of a sudden I find in the middle of a desert an iPhone 14 in the middle of the desert. And this phone, this beautiful phone, with so many apps, with the best of apps, it came in by coincidence. These metals, these gadgets, these chips, they were brought together by accident, by coincidence. Who would believe it? Who would believe this? No one would believe it. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا. You did not create all of this in vain because you had extra time. Because you had extra time, you created all of this. لا ما خلقت هذا باطلا. There's a higher purpose. There's a higher meaning behind all of this. This creation, these skies, this earth, these planets, these stars, there's a higher purpose. ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. My dear friends, sometimes we think that the world, I think the world revolves around me. Me. All of this world revolves around me. My problems, my issues, my stories. It revolves around me, my family, the city that I live in. It revolves around Mississauga or Toronto or Iraq. Life is all about me. That's how we think, right? Well, our perception of life, we're the main character. Just like a movie, there's a hero in the movie. There's a main character in the movie. We are the main character of life in our eyes. Who else is? We're the main character. That means life revolves around us. But that is not the case. Life does not revolve around me, nor my family, nor my city, nor my country, nor my planet, because there's so many other planets. Look at the galaxies. Look at the sky above. We are just a drop in this ocean. A drop in this ocean. Who am I? Who am I in this ocean? What am I? What are my problems? What are my issues? When you think of life with these sort of lens, with this sort of perspective, that I am only a drop in this ocean, my problems become meaningless. My issues become trivial. They will seem very small. Because when I don't look at life in this lens, I think my problems are the biggest problems. My issues are the biggest issues. They need to be dealt with. No, my dear friends. We are a small drop in this ocean. Looking at the skies, looking at the earth, thinking over this, it gives us a new perspective. It gives us a new lens. And we will begin to appreciate things more. We will begin to look at life differently. We will begin to appreciate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The Quran also encourages us to come and study the skies. أَفَلَمْ يَنْظُرُوا إِلَى السَّمَاءِ فَوْقَهُمْ كَيْفَ بَنَيْنَاهَا وَزَيَّنَّاهَا وَمَا لَهَا مِنْ فُرُوجٍ. Do they not see the sky above them, how we built it? كَيْفَ بَنَيْنَاهَا. Do we ever think of this? These skies above us. How is it that they don't fall on top of us? Who is holding the skies from falling on the earth? Who is holding these planets? Each has its own orbit and they never crash. And they say that it's a coincidence. وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ لا الليل سابق النهار لا الشمس تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. All of these planets, they have their own orbits. Have you ever heard of the Earth crashing into Mars or Mars crashes into Venus? Doesn't this show that there's a creator, a higher creator for all of these planets? أَفَلَمْ يَنْظُرُوا إِلَى السَّمَاءِ كَيْفَ بَنَيْنَاهَا. Do they not see how we created? وَزَيَّنَّاهَا. And we made it beautiful. We made it beautiful to look at. وَمَا لَهَا مِنْ فُرُوجٍ. You will not see a single gap in the sky. Look in the sky, you won't see gaps. You won't see weaknesses. You won't say, oh look, no, there's a problem over there. Impossible. Impossible. Because it's perfect. Because the Creator is perfect. And so His creation is perfect. وَمَا لَهَا مِنْ فُرُوجٍ. We will begin to understand the Creator. By studying the creation, you'll begin to understand the Creator, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. A perfect creation. In another verse, Allah says, الَّذِي خلق سبع سماوات طباقا ما ترى في خلق الرحمن من تفاوت فارجع البصر هل ترى من فطور. Do you see any gaps? Do you see any weaknesses in the sky? Do you see any weakness in this creation? Absolutely not. ثم ارجع البصر كرتين ينقلب إليك البصر خاسئا وهو حسير. Try to look and study the sky so many times, you won't find any gaps. You won't find any weaknesses. You won't find a single fault. And they tell you this is the Big Bang. It was a coincidence. It's science. We have to believe in science. They tell you to put your mind on hold and believe in science. No, my science tells me that all of this could not have come into being without a creator. Allah Azza wa Jal, my dear friends, invites us to study the solar system. أَفَلَمْ يَنظُرُوا إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. Do they not study the sky? Study the solar system. And unfortunately, it's as if these verses don't exist in our Quran. Who is studying the solar system now? Which Islamic government? Which government? Which country? Iraq, or Pakistan, or Iran, or Kuwait, or Bahrain? Which one? Who is sending missions to Mars? Who sent missions to the moon? Who's studying the skies? Who's studying the orbit? Who's studying the solar system? It's not us. It's our book that invites us to study the solar system, but it's others. It's NASA. It's the US or China. They're sending. Why don't we implement the Quran? There was a alim. He said something very intriguing, very insightful. He says, Allah revealed the Quran so that Muslims practice it. Instead, Muslims practice reading it. You see? أحد العلماء كان يقول أنزل الله القرآن ليعمل به ولكن اتخذ المسلمون قراءته عملا. Instead of practicing its teachings, we practice reading it. That's why we have qurra, those who are known to recite Quran. Good. Reciting Quran is good. Having a beautiful voice is good. But what is greater is implementing the Quran. Practicing the Quran. The Quran says, go and study the skies. Go and study what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. See what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. All of this was created to be seen, to be discovered. Allah has made a beautiful sky for us. وَلَقَدْ جَعَلْنَا فِي السَّمَاءِ بُرُوجًا وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. We made all of these stars, these planets, so that you may enjoy looking at the sky. وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. So that it becomes beautiful. Look at the sky, study the sky. We made it for you, not that it becomes hidden, not that it's not discovered. No, go and discover what we've created. Go and study what we've created. Sometimes, unfortunately, especially nowadays, in this day and age, we don't even raise our heads in the sky at night to see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Unfortunately, our generation and the generation after us, our heads are down in these gadgets, in our phones. And we all suffer from neck pain. And remember, we wonder why we have neck pain all the time and back pain all the time. It's because of these crazy gadgets that we have. Instead of looking down 24 hours a day, at least for 10 minutes, raise your head to the sky and see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. This beautiful, it's for us to enjoy. Allah created all of this so that we enjoy it. تبارك الذي جعل في السماء بروجا وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا. Allah created the moon that lights up for us to see. لكي نستمتع بهذا المنظر أيها الأحبة. الله عز وجل دلل الإنسان، دلله، أنعم عليه بجميع النعم، خلق له ما في الأرض جميعا لخاطر هذا الإنسان الذي لا يشكر الله، الذي يكفر بنعمة الله، الذي لا يعتز بما خلق الله عز وجل. هذه الخلائق كلها خلقت لأجل الإنسان. إنا زينا السماء الدنيا بزينة الكواكب. Allah says we put these different planets and stars to make the sky beautiful for you so that you enjoy it. وَزَيَّنَّا السَّمَاءَ الدُّنْيَا بِمَصَابِيحَ وَحِفْظًا ذَلِكَ تَقْدِيرُ الْعَزِيزِ الْعَلِيمِ. But are we grateful? Allah does all of this so that we are pleased. But are we pleased? We're never pleased. We're never pleased. It's like some children, no matter what their parents do for them, they're never pleased. Their parents take them on a road trip. They take them to Turkey, to Thailand, to the most beautiful places. They spend on them. They buy them so much just so that this child will be pleased. They're never pleased. They're never pleased. Especially here in the West. Here in the West, parents, they're not remembered. That's why there's a Father's Day and a Mother's Day. You know, the philosophy behind Father's Day and Mother's Day is because mothers and fathers are neglected. Because they're neglected, that's why they had to pick for them a day out of the year. Because their children, they don't call. They only call on Thanksgiving and Christmas if they get a chance to call them, they'll call them on Christmas. We too, we're ungrateful with Allah. We're ingrateful with Allah. Allah has created so much to please us, but we're never pleased. طيب. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. This is a hadith that Amir al-Mu'mineen said in his lifetime. But did his people think of this? Think over this? Amir al-Mu'mineen would say, Saluni qabla an tafquduni. Saluni qabla an tafquduni. Time and time again. In fact, no other person other than Ali ibn Abi Talib dared to say, ask me before you lose me. Who? Bring me anyone else. Philosopher, king, ruler. Anyone would say, ask me before you lose me, other than Ali ibn Abi Talib. Did any of the Sahaba ever say Saluni? On the contrary, some of the Sahaba, they would shy away from questions. Amir al-Mu'mineen would say, ask. One time he said, Saluni an turuq as-sama' فإني والله أعلم بها من طرق الأرض. Ask me about the pathways and the freeways and the roads and the sky, because by God I am more knowledgeable of the pathways and roads of the sky than I am of the roads on earth. This was Ali ibn Abi Talib. But did anyone take advantage and say, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, tell us more. Tell us more of the skies. Tell us more of the universe. No one asked. And this was an atrocity. This was a great oppression, not for Amir al-Mu'mineen, but for not benefiting from Amir al-Mu'mineen. Instead, they chose to put someone else in power, someone who did not know the meaning of Abba. The second Khalifa, someone comes to him, they told him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what is the meaning of Abba? وَفَاكِهَةً وَأَبَّا. قال لا أعلم. لا أعلم. While the verse itself, القرآن هو يفسر هذه الآية. الآية التي بعدها تفسر هذه الآية. وفاكهة وأبا متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم. فاكهة متاعا لكم. أبا متاعا لأنعامكم. So a lady, she comes and she corrects him. She tells him, Abba means food for animals. So he said, كل الناس أعلم منك يا فلان. حتى النساء. Everyone is more knowledgeable than you, even women. And this shows how misogynistic he was, because he couldn't believe that a woman could be more knowledgeable than him. No, even the women at the time were more knowledgeable than him. But he had this misogynistic view of women, that how could a woman be more knowledgeable than him? طيب. Allah Azza wa Jal also says, وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَاهَا بَأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is consistently expanding this universe. This is a scientific idea mentioned in the Quran that scientists today are discovering. The Quran mentioned this 14 centuries ago, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ever expanding this universe. It's consistently being expanded. طيب. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. We come to the second portion of the lecture, and that is the fiqh discussion. Now, if someone were to go into space, is this allowed or not allowed? You might say, well, why wouldn't it be allowed? What is the problem in going into space? The problem is in this. If you were to go to space and you have a space suit, Can you leave the spacesuit or you cannot leave the spacesuit? If you can leave the spacesuit to perform wudu and pray, then there's no issue, there's nothing wrong. But if you cannot leave the spacesuit, and hence you cannot perform wudu, nor ghusl, nor tayammum, then you don't have tahara. If you don't have tahara, do you pray? You don't pray, because la salata illa bitahur. You have to have tahara, either al-tahara al-ma'iyya or al-tahara al-turabiyya. You either have to have wudu, if possible, or tayammum. But if you can't have both, that means you can't pray. And willingly, you're putting yourself in a position in which you will not be able to pray. Here some ulama say, no, this is not allowed. This is not halal. Unless there's a necessity, then that's another issue. But to pay $100,000, $200,000 to go into space for 2 days, 3 days for entertainment purposes, but you can't pray? No. This is not a necessity. So this is one issue. Another issue is if you can leave the spacesuit to perform wudu, then you must. If you cannot perform wudu, but you can perform tayammum, you must perform tayammum. If you cannot perform ghusl in space because of the spacesuit, but you can, for example, you can perform tayammum, you have to perform tayammum. Because tayammum is a replacement for wudu and ghusl. It's a replacement for wudu and for ghusl. طيب. What if you cannot perform ruku' and sujood? Because you're in space, there's no gravity. What do? If you cannot perform ruku' and sujood, you move your head. You move your head slightly for ruku' and slightly more for ruku'. طيب. As I said, فاقد الطهورين. If you cannot perform wudu, nor ghusl, nor tayammum, you are فاقد الطهورين. If you are فاقد الطهورين, you don't pray. خلاص. Because لا صلاة إلا بطهور. So if you were to put yourself in this position and you went and you could not perform the following, then you wouldn't pray. طيب. What would be your qibla out in space? This is an intriguing question. What would be your qibla? If you can turn towards Mecca, then Mecca is your qibla. If you can't face Mecca, but you can face Saudi Arabia, meaning Arabia or Al-Haram, you face Al-Haram. If you can't face either one, not Mecca nor the Haram, then your qibla becomes earth itself. Earth itself becomes your qibla. طيب. What times do you pray if you're in outer space? Because Salah has timings. Salatul Subh is at dawn. Dhuhr is at noon. Maghrib is at sunset. When you're in outer space, there's no dawn, there's no sunrise, there's no noon, there's no sunset. So what times do you pray? Here, there's 4 theories. One theory says you don't pray at all. Why? Because you pray at dawn, there's no dawn. You pray at noon, there's no noon. You pray at sunset, there's no sunset. This is one theory. Second theory says that you pray according to the times of your own city. If you're from Mississauga, you pray according to the times of Mississauga. You're from Toronto, you pray according to the times of Toronto. Fourth theory says you pray according to the times of the nearest city to you in outer space. If you were to draw a straight line, what is the closest city to you? You pray according to the times of that city. The fourth theory is that you pray according to the times of the city that you took off from. The space shuttle, where did it take off from? Miami, Los Angeles, New York. You pray according to the times of the city where you took off from. طيب. Let's say you go to the moon and there's water on the moon and you can leave. Let's say you can leave the spacesuit. Are you allowed to perform wudu or ghusl with the water from moon? Yes. As long as it's water. If it's ma, you're allowed to perform wudu and ghusl from that water. What about tayammum from the sand of the moon or Mars, for example? If we were to land on these planets and there's sand, can we perform tayammum? Yes. As long as it's sand, turab, it is called sand, then it is permissible. طيب. Can we establish mosques in outer space? Yes. Why not? Whether it's on these planets or on the moon, we can establish a mosque. Or for example, a spaceship that has a mosque. This is permissible. And the laws of mosques will pertain to those mosques as well in outer space. For example, if a lady is on her menstrual cycle, is she allowed to enter this mosque? No. I'm sorry, ladies. Even in outer space, these laws will apply. A person who is mujnib, is he allowed to enter such a mosque? No. Because as long as it's a masjid, is a mosque, whether it's on earth or on the moon, these same laws apply. What about fasting? Someone goes out into outer space during the month of Ramadan. How do you fast? Because fasting begins from dawn until sunset. But out in space, there's no dawn and there's no sunset. How do you fast? The same four theories apply. Number one, there's no fasting. Number two, you fast according to your own city. Number three, the nearest city. Number four, the city that you took off from. This is basically some of the fiqh laws that pertain to outer space. Wa sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The third and last point that we'll address is this something that our youth should go into, think about, to go into space, to raise money, and to go with SpaceX with Elon Musk and go on a journey for 3 days, 4 days into space. Is this something encouraged for our youth? My dear friends, first of all, going is something very, very expensive. This is something very, very expensive. Instead of spending $200,000, $300,000 on a 2-3 day expedition, use it for a better cause. Our youth today, they have difficulty finding a job, finding a house, finding an apartment, paying off their mortgage. There are some that are, they're taking out a loan just to go into space. Why? Is it a necessity? Is it a must? Is it something that you have to have? Is it really worth it? Instead of building a family, raising funds for yourself, you have extra money, donate it to a local Islamic center. Open a school. Open an orphanage. Send it to families in Iraq and Lebanon and Afghanistan and Pakistan, people that need it. Not spending this big amount on a 2-day, 3-day expedition. Something that is not really worth it. And you're not really learning much. It's only about popularity and about fame. Oh, well, I went to space. Okay. And then what happens? What did you gain? What did you benefit? And this is a money-making machine. The idea is to get people's money. To get people's money. Take them for 2 days and make $200,000, $300,000. For what? This is a waste of money. Are you really learning? Is this actually learning? Is it a learning experience? The Quran says, وَلَا تُبَذِّرْ تَبْذِيرًا. Don't waste your money. وَلَا تُبَذِّرْ تَبْذِيرًا إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ. Don't waste your money. Those who waste are the brothers of shaitan. Some are willing to take out a loan. They have other expenses. They have college funds. They have to pay off their loans for college, for university, buy a house, buy an apartment, but they're willing to take out a loan to go into space. Why? Do you remember about a month ago or less, the Titan, the submersible? Remember what happened? That went to see Titanic, and it became Titanic number 2. Remember what happened? The 5 individuals that went on the Titan to get a look at the Titanic. And what happened? Each of those individuals that went paid $250,000 to face their fate, to die in the middle of the ocean, and there was an implosion. There was an implosion in the submersible. Why? $250,000 for what? Just to go see the Titanic? Go see the movie. It's a lot more fun. It's better than going out. Was it worth it? Risking your life and the life of your son, the life of your loved ones. For what? For what? My dear friends, we have to have our priorities straight. Our youth have to have their priorities straight. There's something important and there's something more important. I'm not telling you that this is haram, but have your priorities straight. Our youth in the West, they have to have their priorities straight. Worry about your education. Worry about your studies. Worry about your university. Worry about getting a job. Today, getting a job is something difficult. There's a lot of competition in getting a job, finding a house, paying your mortgage, getting married, starting a family, having kids. Worry about your kids. Today, our kids are in danger. I was having a conversation with one of my brothers today as we were driving here. Today, our youth are in danger. They're being indoctrinated. Their gender identity is being taken away from them. There's an agenda to hurt our youth and to rip them off of their identity and to confuse them. They don't even know, are they a man, are they a woman, or you're a boy, or you're a girl. They're confusing our children. We have to worry about the future of our children, not worry about going on a space expedition for 2 days, 3 days, and paying so much money. We have priorities. Let's take care of our children, our youth that are being misguided. There's an agenda. There's an agenda to destroy our families. The family unit that we knew it, that consists of a man and a woman and children, it's being destroyed. It's being ruined. There's an agenda. This is our priority, to protect ourselves, protect our children, protect our families. This should be our priority, not something else. That comes second. That comes second. Our priority is to protect ourselves. You have extra money, build an Islamic center, build an Islamic school, build a cemetery. We Muslims, we have needs. Support your Muslim community. There are individuals in the community, they can't pay their rent. Go and ask about them. Go and ask who can't pay their rent, who can't pay their mortgage. Go and ask for them, help them. Not to think of going into space and spending so much money and it goes. After 2 days, it goes. That's if you come back safely. That's if you come back safely. We have to have our priorities straight. Ibn Abbas, he says, I saw a group of men from Kufa discussing the kafara of killing an insect, a mosquito in the haram. In the haram. If someone kills a mosquito in the haram, what is the penalty? What is the kafara? He said, Subhanallah, you're discussing the penalty of killing a mosquito? You guys killed the grandson of Rasulullah and you're worried about killing a mosquito? The kafara of a mosquito? What are the priorities? There's something important and there's something more important. You see, successful individuals, they know what their priorities are. They never mix. They always prioritize. Someone who is successful never gives their attention to something not important while they have something important to take care of. And the Ahlul Bayt were like this. The Ahlul Bayt, they prioritized. They had priorities. A lot of people ask that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he knew he had companions that were hypocrites. Allah told him, وَمِنْ أَهْلِ الْمَدِينَةِ مَرَدُوا عَلَى النِّفَاقِ لَا تَعْلَمُهُمْ نَحْنُ نَعْلَمُهُمْ. There are people in Medina that are hypocrites, Ya Rasulullah. Why didn't Rasulullah cleanse his ranks from these hypocrites? Why? Why did he allow so-and-so, 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 these individuals to rest in his ranks and then become leaders? Why couldn't Rasulullah call them out? So-and-so, you're a hypocrite, you're a hypocrite, you're a hypocrite, leave. Why? Because that was not a priority for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Islam was still fragile. Islam was in need of all of the individuals, all of its members, the good and the bad, the genuine believers and the hypocrites. Rasulullah left the stage of calling out the hypocrites for years later. When? The year 61 after Hijrah. Specifically with Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. When Imam Hussein came, it was his time to close the ranks and to call out the hypocrites. No more keeping these hypocrites amongst the Muslim nation. No, no, no. They have to be called out. They have to be called out. وَيَزِيد فَاسِقٌ فَاجِرٌ. خلاص. That's it. It was time to name call them. Call them out. Because their destruction now was bigger than their use. Previously, Islam needed all the numbers, all the soldiers that it could get. But today, no. Today we have to differentiate between the hypocrites and the mu'mineen. And hence Imam Hussein's revolution was important. Because it distinguished between the true believers and the hypocrites. And it called out Bani Umayyah, who came into Islam not in actual belief, but out of interest in becoming rulers. Yazid, when he sees the heads of Imam Hussein and his companions, he says, فَلَا خَبَرٌ جَاءَ وَلَا وَحْيٌ يَزَلْ. Muawiyah, when he hears the name of Rasulullah in the adhan, he says, لَا وَاللَّهِ دَفْنًا دَفْنًا. I will bury the name of Muhammad. Abu Sufyan, in the battle of Uhud, he would say, أُعْلُ هُبَلْ أُعْلُ هُبَلْ. This was Bani Umayyah. These were the leaders, these were the rulers. And we will not discuss those that were before. We will keep that for another chapter. Tonight is the eve of the 3rd of Muharram, my dear brothers and sisters. This night is designated to one of the daughters of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Ruqayyah. It is designated to this 3-year-old daughter of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, whom the Imam would tell his sister, my sister, take care of my orphans. Take care of my children. And Sayyidah Zainab, she tried her best to take care of the orphans of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Until they come to Kufa, to Sham, Yazid puts the family of Imam Hussein in Al-Khariba, in basically a dumpster. Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam, every night, these young women, these young girls, the children, Sayyidah Zainab would move from one child to another, from one orphan to another, putting them to sleep. She would be the last person to sleep. The very last person to sleep. She would go from Sukayna to Ruqayyah, from one orphan to the other, putting them to sleep, reading them, putting them to sleep. She put Ruqayyah to sleep, all of them to sleep, as Sayyidah Zainab was just about to sleep, just about to put her head on the pillow and sleep. All of a sudden she sees baby Ruqayyah, wake up. Amma, my father is coming. No, Amma, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Ruqayyah, go back to sleep. Allow me to sleep. She said, no, Amma, I saw him. He's coming back. She started to cry. As soon as she started to cry, all of the other women and children began to cry. عما قومي خلي نعدل دارنا عما قومي خلي نعدل دارنا أخاف على غفلة ويطب خطارنا نذر عندي لو أبويا زارنا. She started shouting, Abba, my father. All of the women and children began shouting and crying. Everyone begins to cry. Yazid is in his palace drinking. He hears the crying of the women and children. What is happening? What is this commotion? They told him, Ya Amir, one of the daughters of Imam Hussein woke up and she's crying. She's asking for her father. He said, لا بأس احملوا إليها رأس أبيها. Take to her the head of her father. They bring the head of Imam Hussein to the camp, to this khariba. جابوا شافتهم من بعيد صاحت هلا براسك يا العميد يا هلال العزن بليلة العيد، ليش قطعت بينا يا صنديد، وعفتنا ويا ناس مش جاويد. They bought the head of Imam Hussein to Ruqayya. She thought that this is food. She said, I am not hungry, I want my father. They told her, what you're looking for is in this dish. She sees the head of her father. أبا من الذي قطع الرأس الشريف، من الذي خضب الشيب العفيف، من الذي أيتمني على صغر سني. She kept on saying Abba until Ruqayya calms down. She stops crying. Everyone thinks that she fell asleep. Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, he said to his aunt Zainab, Amma irfa'i ukhti min ala al-ras. When they left at Ruqayya, they saw that she had died. يا بويا يا بويا يا هل قطع راسك، يا هل سل بثيابك، يا بويا غطى كل مصاب الماجر مصابك، عسى بعيد البلا مخضب وبفيض الدمه خضابك، قبل لا اشوفك بهالحال يا ريت انعمت عيناي، عمت عيني ولا اشوفك ذبيح ويجري دم نحرك، واصحابك واهل بيتك ضحايا مطرح بكترك، يا ريت تعقرت هالخيل ولا داست على ظهرك، وكأني بالعقيلة زينب وهي تقول خويا أنا تحيرت والله بيتامك، بيتاماك خويا أنا مالي حيل فرقاك، هاي تصيح عمه وين عمي، وذيك تصيح فارقني ابن أمي. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا عيبا إلا سترته، ولا خوفا إلا آمنته، ولا رزقا إلا بسطته، ولا شملا إلا جمعته، ولا مرضا إلا شفيته، ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.